The Map by Ruba Qewar, Chapter 4, World Fundamentalism, the Unseen Practices. World Evangelism. Once the Christian missionaries are trained, then arrive in the field, the first thing they must do is to learn the adjustment to the culture they are in. Evangelism and the culture, strategies. We must first learn the world view of the Christian missionaries and how they see Muslims in general. What are the strategies that they use to reach the various people groups? In fact, this section is probably the most important one because it unveils the new tactics that missionaries use when evangelizing. Adopting culture. It is important for evangelical workers to understand the way of life according to their host culture. This means that they must learn the culture through knowing the traditional stories and tales and knowing their symbols and practices. Christian missionaries are trained to know their own culture and religion very well so they won't slip into the other culture's way. They also need to find a way to inject the gospel in the surrounding culture. This is called contextualization. When a church is planted, the church must take in the norm of the culture without the Western culture influence. Christian missionaries are trained to understand the world view of the other culture in order to adjust themselves with their surroundings. Cultural education involves growth in understanding the laws and the attitudes of the cultures in order to make the right decision in their work. Native Christian missionaries are considered better than the foreign ones simply because they speak the same language of the region. They live around their loved ones and friends, so the Christian agents tend to train native Christian leaders to speak their own language. So after the torch is given to them, you see the foreign missionaries starting to pull themselves out in order for the church to keep going. Adopting language. Christian missionaries are trained to learn other languages, get students, teach leaders, improving the attitude towards others, and achieving the planting of the church. If the native language was not used, then work will lean toward the Western culture instead of evangelizing the indigenous people. Therefore, most missionaries choose to work in the fields of education, trade, and customer service because it is easier in communicating with others and find the right churches to spread the gospel and witness to other people. Learning culture and language go together side by side. The Christian missionary will not be able to communicate with people and have an effect on them if they do not know their language. Learning a new language as a missionary depends on forming words, sentences, introducing correct annotations in the language, correct spelling and grammar, learning the acceptable language rules of the social culture of the people by knowing the greeting, writing addresses, expressing feelings, and holding conversation. It is not enough for the teacher to speak and create dialogues, but it is necessary for him to change the format of the conversation properly to fit the culture and the ability to write letters, giving lectures, praying in public, telling stories and poems, and writing articles. Christian missionaries are trained to practice the language to adjust the communication when it's about to be destroyed. Some scholars say that 93% of the meanings of the conversation can be understood verbally. They also say that a person has the ability to learn languages other than their mother tongue. One of the complaints that missionaries receive from other people, especially if they are from North America, is that the missionaries are shallow and tend to show that they are close and good friends, may have good listening skills, but the more deep you go with them, the more you see the individual personality in them, that they resist the long-term commitment and the mutual relationship with other people. There are other missionaries who like having a position of authority to control others. Their attitudes tend to have toughness and cling to their beliefs tightly and do not accept any group from outside. Western cultures have a strong sense of privacy, distance, and self-rights. People groups coming from the Far East may not understand these values. North Americans believe that privacy is a gift from God and a right that cannot be negotiable. Western culture supports the individual rights, while other cultures see that the rights of the groups are more important.